How will Google's plan to verify developers change your custom ROMs, Graphene OS, Lineage, and other things? What will this mean for the future of Android? Today, we're going to look at what the various developers and other people commenting on the situation have said and dig a little bit deeper into what Google is doing and why, and how it's kind of useless. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave us a like and a comment down below. And today we are going to be talking about the Google developer identity verification, which is utter nonsense. It's simply a way for Google to collect even more information. They are basically going through a series of processes. We are going to get to the point where everybody who uses a Google account, and that will pretty much be everybody because many of us are being forced in some cases to use Google accounts, as we will see. Eventually, all of us will have to submit our government-issued IDs to Google. This is just one more thing, but it has some implications and some questions surrounding it. So we are going to dive in. First, of course, what is going on? Google wants to make sideloading Android apps safer by verifying developers' identities. And so basically what they want to do is, even if you're sideloading applications, installing through third-party stores like F-Droid or Aurora, every application going onto a standard stock Google device is going to have to be verified by Google. Now, they're very clear, hey, even if you're sideloading, you still got to do this. So no more freely passing out your APKs, which does this have some security implications? Yes, there is potentially some positive security implications from this move. However, Google is not checking the devices for malware, the apps for malware. They're not apparently taking actions against people, as we will actually show here. But what they're doing effectively is part of the Google Play services is the Google Play integrity. And that is really what is being checked here, so that now if you're even sideloading something, it's still going to be checking that process coming to Android devices soon. And so what happens is everybody is going to have to go in and supply information to Google. And then, of course, if you go over, there's about the developer stuff, which basically means Google is going to be doxing everybody. Of course, this is one of the reasons why we're seeing a massive increase in people stealing verified IDs from all these run-of-the-mill third-party ID check sites, harvesting the IDs, so, they'll just verify them through you. And then when they do something illegal and the FBI comes kicking in the door, they're just kicking in your door, not the scammers. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? And so what they're doing is they are forcing you to go in and do some ID verification checks. Now, part of this is, yes, welcome to Google's new walled garden. We have a lot of that. Welcome to the walled garden. So this is the way that they can limit what people can do. And they say Google should get rid of early access scam apps instead of this crap. And then, of course, the fact of the matter is this particular article here was giving it a positive spin on this. Now, I think I got this article out of place. This one here actually had better information in the screenshots. So Google says, hey, think of this like an ID check for the airport, which aims to confirm travelers' identities, but separates it from the security screening of their bags. We'll be confirming who the developer is and not reviewing the content of their app. Kind of like the Snap Store issue. Yes, you're a verified developer. Now that you're verified, feel free to change your app and put malware in it. Sounds like we've heard something like that this week. We'll get to that at the end of the show. Top comment. I really like this comment. This is a comment on this particular article. I'm struggling to see the benefits of the new policy while it's presented as a security measure. The requirement to fill out these forms is a trivial barrier to actual malware creators who will easily abuse the system. The real impact will be felt by legitimate developers who either value their privacy or don't want to be tied to Google's centralized ecosystem. The primary concern is the potential for mismanagement, which could disproportionately harm independent developers. We've already seen how Google's automated systems can randomly ban established developers from Google Play with little to no feedback. A system like this, which grants Google even more oversight, could easily make the problem worse. It's unclear if this will be a simple layer like Play Protect, which users can at least disable, or something far more restrictive that ruins the openness of the platform. The lack of clarity is clearly troubling. The developer community needs to be ready to push back and engage with regulators if the policy proves to be damaging as it seems. But without concrete details from Google, it's difficult to know if a strong protest is warranted yet. My fear is that by the time we have clarity, the policy will already be in effect and it will be too late. And so that is what we're see from 9 to 5 Google. Now, this is the actual Android developers page with the information. By making Android safer, we're protecting the open environment that allows developers and users to confidently create and share and connect. Android's new developer verification is an extra layer of security that deters bad actors and makes it harder for them to spread harm. So starting in September 2026, Android will require all apps to be registered by developers in order to be installed on certified Android devices. This means sideloading. This means through F-Droid. This means through any other source. Every application going onto the phone will be required to be verified by a verified developer. So even if you're just sitting at home and you've downloaded the Android Studio and you're just coding an app, you can't even sideload the thing onto an official Google device, Android device, just for testing purposes as you're building your app. That's how bad this gets. Fortunately, we have like virtualization through Waydroid, which we'll get around this. We'll get into that in a minute. So, of course, you can sign up for early access. They'll have an invitation to start earlier. To get verified, 2 main steps. Verify your identity. You'll need to provide and verify your personal details like your legal name, address, email, and phone number. All this is published on Google's websites. Okay. The challenge here is unless you create a separate company with a separate address, you will have to dox yourself. Your personal details will be on there. If you're registering it as an organization, you'll need to provide the DUNS number and verify your organization's website. So anything that verifies your company in U.S., this would be like your incorporation papers. You may also need to upload official government ID. So yet again, let's have your ID. Secondly, you'll have to register your apps. You have to prove you own your apps by providing your app package name and app signing keys. Of course, how's this going to stop supply chain hacks? It won't. How's it going to stop one of these verified developers from throwing malware in? It won't. How's it going to stop a shell corporation from registering with all of this stuff with maybe stolen or fake credentials and then uploading malware? It won't. It's just not a solution at all. So they have one separate one for developers who use Google Play, and this is going to be, your commercial applications. We have another section for students and hobbyists. So you can do that. So you can still verify your app as you're building it on Android Studio. You just have to still submit all of this information to Google. How wonderful. And then the timeline, they've announced it today. In October, early access and invitations begin for those experienced. March 2026, verification opens for all developers. By September 2026, requirement goes into effect in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. They've targeted those particular countries because that's where most malware is coming from. Interesting. And then 2027, we will continue to roll it out globally. So we have about a year or two before the platform effectively collapses. This is actually the blog post from August 25th here, and I love how it starts here. You shouldn't have to choose between open and secure. By engineering security into the core part of the OS, the Android has proven you can have both, and we continue to taking new steps in that direction. So, according to Google's own analysis, 50 times more malware comes from internet sideload sources than apps available through the Google Play Store. I would really like to see an independent company look at that data because I'm not sure it's that high. And even if it is that high, if I have the freedom to install something on my device, it is up to me to do that. So that certainly is on me if I'm looking at that issue. So now they want to do developer verification, which will not, by the way, verify that the app is any good. It just gives an ID or at least a shell company to Google. So good luck with that. Of course, are they going to help figuring out who the malicious actors are? I don't know. So it goes in and they talk about Brazil and a few other places where malware is the highest, which is why it's being implemented there first. And then they have some time to develop. They give us the same information there. Of course, certified developer, certified phones, like that's pretty much everything. And of course, many of the phones now are making it harder to install custom ROMs on, including Google. Although Graphene did get their officially get their Pixel 10, they said they can still unlock the bootloader. They can still work with everything, and but they do need to wait for Android 16, I think is the next one, to come out. So they said by September they will be working on the next version of Graphene OS. The biggest downside of the Pixel 10, though, no SIM card slot. At least in the U.S., no SIM card slot in the U.S. So you will be forced to use an eSIM on Graphene OS going forward. That for me is kind of a deal breaker. I really want my phones to have SIM cards. I mean, just take this. My Graphene phone had an issue with the digitizer a couple months ago, and when I was down in Virginia, and it's like, oh, I can't use my phone. 5 in the morning. Well, I simply popped the SIM card out, threw it into my Razer phone, which is my Lineage phone I keep around for backup, pop it in there, and hey, it works perfectly fine. And so the fact of the matter is I do not want to be dealing with eSIMs. Then, of course, you got to get a hold of your carrier and you got to verify your identity, with your phone that's not working. Go figure. So the question is, how is this going to impact ROMs? Because people have been asking this. So there's no official blog statement on anybody's site, but looking at various different forums, social media posts, and things like that, we at least have a few answers. How does this impact Lineage OS from r/Lineage OS? And so there's, of course, one of the links to this article. And basically, the answer for this is kind of broad across all the custom ROMs. If the custom ROM does not have Google Play services, this does not apply. The big downside of this is we're going to see fewer developers building free and open source apps because the market is only people who are using highly modified custom ROMs. And it may not be worth it. However, maybe those developers will still push out the apps and will possibly still have a version that they can also put on F-Droid. So the problem is that are your favorite app developers willing to step through Google's hoops just to have their applications on F-Droid if any random Android phone cannot install it? If it's your only market now becomes Lineage and Graphene and a few other custom ROMs, while custom ROMs are becoming harder to install on various phones, is that going to impact the free and open source applications? Or are these guys going to give up and we'll be left with the advertiser harvesting nonsense apps that are completely full of markers, trackers, and everything else? And so basically, they're answering the basic way, saying since Lineage by default does not include Google Play services, is not impacted, but if you do the step to install Google Play services on your Lineage phone may be impacted by this. So looking over at Graphene OS, people are asking over there, this should make the sandbox Google Play Store and services even more important. It'll be interesting to see how Graphene OS will be able to handle this as a GPS. We'll try to block apps from unverified Google Play services in this case. We'll try to block apps from unverified developers being installed via third party. So on Graphene, you have the ability to run a sandbox Google Play services. And if you try and install an app, the question becomes, can I install an app? So the way people are getting around this on Graphene is you can run a Graphene profile that does not have Google Play services. You can run a Graphene instance that has Google Play services. So if you wanted to install an app from a developer without being verified through Google, you have to be running Graphene on the non-Play services system. And then the question is, even on the Google Play services sandbox, will that sandbox check be available? So in other words, will you be able to install the app? That's really what we don't know yet, is how is that going to work? So effectively, if Graphene would allow you to, if Graphene will allow the Google Play Store to do those app checks on the install, you should be able to install it, but we really don't know. in this instance. When asked about this over on grapheneos.social, this user leaves a comment up here linking again to these two. Graphene OS responds, we are worried about plenty things, but not this. Play integrity API is a major ongoing concern for us, as are some other things. Android and Google Play being split from Google into a new company might be a positive thing, but it could also turn out very badly were AOSP to get discontinued. So that's the Android open source project. In fact, recent changes negatively impacting AOSP seem to be partly caused by Google losing some lawsuits. Courts and governments do not know or care about open source, and these results can be bad. So Graphene developers are not particularly concerned about this. The fact of the matter is, the way people are using Graphene OS phones probably differs a little bit from your standard phones. And that's going to get us to one of the principles is maybe as a society, we need to rely less and less on our phones. However, that may not be, let me actually go over here first. That may not actually be a thing because this was a thread over here where people were talking about Google was actually asking your opinions, and this guy here is basically saying that the challenge we have here is that in many countries, like in Germany, for example, where this one user was from down here somewhere, the nationwide train ticket system required for all of their public services requires Google Play services and is only usable on a phone that's distributed through the app. Presumably, they also have an iPhone app as well. So some local public transport where you can't buy tickets with cash or card anymore, only in Google Play and only in the distributed app. The local train replacement service as well. So there's also a service you can use for food delivery services that sends you reusable plates instead of styrofoam. The only way to do this is with a Google Play only distributed app. And so the challenge here is that many people, based on their country positions, are being forced to use Google devices. And now we're being forced into this walled garden where people are now forced to provide their government issued IDs to these multi-billion-dollar global national corporate conglomerates. And that in and of itself is a serious problem. So what is F-Droid's stance? So over on the F-Droid forum, again, this is not an official response, but this is some community discussion. New Android development requirement means that all apps installed on certified Android devices will have to come from verified developers. The move is intended to increase app safety measures by confirming developer identities. Regarding F-Droid and its apps, verification requirement poses significant challenges. F-Droid relies on builds and apps that may not have the Google verification, which could effectively block or limit F-Droid apps from being installed on most Android devices under the new policy. Now, here's the real kick of this. F-Droid actually does audit every app. They audit every app, every update, and they compile this from source themselves. So when you are downloading something from F-Droid, you have a greater confidence that it is a good app than you do downloading from the Google Play Store. Now, of course, they're not as big as the Google Play Store. They do not have even a fraction of the apps. And so they can do that. But the fact of the matter is these sideloaded, unverified Google apps are safer than the verified Google apps you get on the Play Store, which are usually full of malware. I shouldn't say usually. They have a high chance of being full of malware. Look at the millions and millions of apps that they pull down on a regular basis. Oh, this app was caught with a bunch of spyware in it. We got to pull them all down. There's 15 million users. Oh, joy. How wonderful. We'll get into that in a minute here, too. All right. So, they say here the requirement to register and verify developer identity is seen by many as a potential end or heavy restriction on alternative app stores and sideloaded apps like those through F-Droid, unless F-Droid itself becomes an approved and verified developer source. So F-Droid maybe could do that and put its stamp of approval on each app it distributes. That's a way. In summary, this new policy may kill or severely restrict F-Droid and its apps on mainstream Android devices because it curtails the ability to install non-verified apps. Users could only install those apps by disabling protections like Play Protect on non-certified devices, which is a high barrier. So how do you do that? There is over here on NerdChalk, there is a discussion on Google Play Protect. So if they are using Google Play Protect, you can get around this restriction by disabling this. The problem is we do not know if this is the way Google is doing that. But anyway, if it is, let's just assume that they are blocking these apps by Google Play Protect. You can actually come into here and you can turn off Google Play Protect, going into the settings, followed by Google, scroll down to security, tap Google Play Protect, and you can turn this off. So if you do this, then in theory, you might be able to still sideload on, apps from these developers. And I'll be honest, if this is all it takes for you to be able to sideload anything you want, then this doesn't bother me much. Now, it might bother you if this has to be turned on to use your banking apps. But again, here's the big problem I see with the way we're doing things right now is we are too dependent on our phones, which are becoming walled gardens and tools of surveillance. We should not be doing banking stuff on our phones. They are too insecure. There's too many mobile malware out there. And by the way, you can get the malware other places. This is not going to stop the malware. They're just going to steal an identity, or they're going to hack into somebody's supply chain and just put their malware in the supply chain. Supply chain hacks are true, and what we'll see is an increase in supply chain breaches, because then if 30 different apps use your malicious supply chain code, the verified developer doesn't even know they're installing malware, and Google doesn't know until there's massive reports or big security issues. And that's really what we might see, which could potentially impact the free and open source apps as well. So this does not actually solve any problems. But ultimately, what we need to do as people is stop relying on our phones so much for these things. When it comes to banking, do what I do. Have a separate banking computer. If you don't have a full way to do a separate whole physical computer, which by the way, I don't, I just use an external USB drive. That external USB drive has nothing on it but what's related to banking. There's nothing on there but banking stuff. That's it. So it's not used for search the internet. It's not used for anything else other than logging into bank accounts in sandbox browsers. That's it. Very secure. Is it more inconvenient? Yes. Welcome to life. Inconvenience is what saves you the most in life. Inconvenience yourself for your privacy, inconvenience yourself for your security. And I'm going to show you an example about why this is likely to not work. And in the video I talked about a couple days ago, if you guys remember the free VPN situation, I threw out this speculation, and this is speculation on my behalf, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it in here anyway. And I would highly encourage you to have a look at that VPN app. You say, well, I don't use free VPN 1. That's fine. The reason this is important is, based on some of the evidence that I looked at digging deeply into this, I believe that the developer between FreeVPN 1 is also the developer between FreeVPN.live. And Anami VPN, a free residential VPN, both, you'll notice on this, featured verified apps. Two featured verified apps, which are simply free VPN add-ons. These two here we know are connected to the same developer. If you go down and look at the docs information, you'll see all of the information about these are the same. Okay, the challenge we have is that this one here, freevpn.live, this one launched 2 days before the malware or the spyware started happening in freevpn.1. And 2 or 3 days or so before the original coding was changed, this one went live. Both of these services started up just this year. This one here, June. The other one, July. Both by the same developer, out of a company out of Sri Lanka, with the only ties we have are these two VPNs right now and two apps, and one of those is a budgeting app. Now, that's also tied to a big YouTube account, and that what makes me go, maybe it isn't the same guy. But the fact is that the anamivpn.com, which is tied to this, was registered at the same registrar as the freevpn.1 domain, and it is a really weird, obscure registrar, and it's odd that that would have gone. However, freevpn.live went to a different registrar. And that is not solid evidence that these are the same people, but it will not surprise me if the person behind these two free VPNs, all, both featured and verified free VPNs, that looks like it's tied to freevpn.1. It looks like it is. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying the evidence is out there. So here's the thing. We got to watch these two plugins, and we got to watch the two apps, the two verified apps by the same developer, one of them being a budging app, the other one is a game. The challenge we have is this guy goes in here and does these, and he's utilizing this company from Sri Lanka. He utilized a shell company from London, which is about to have their assets seized by the crown because they haven't paid anything and they're letting it die. And they also have a shell company out of Delaware. Now, I do know that the freevpn.1 is tied to the London company and the Delaware company. I've not tied that to these guys other than that obscure registrar which used to register the two different domains. Have a look at that VPN video and tell me what you think. I could be wrong about that. I'm just throwing out speculation based on some really interesting circumstances and some interesting lining up of dates. And this is the problem, is that this is allegedly regulated by the same Google people that are trying to keep us safe. They have taken down freevpn.1 because it was demonstrated to not be safe. And now we have two very, very similar, almost exact devices. Okay. Both verified and featured. You can't make this stuff up. Google's security is a joke. That is why I want to sideload my apps. I want to get them from F-Droid, who actually does audit things. And I want to use open source things that many people have seen their eyes on. And for the love of God, I do not want to use my phone for doing massive amounts of personal stuff. I want to use my phone for basic internet searches, basic communication, and that's about it. And that's the way we should get to it. We should get to using our phones less. So if this becomes this crazy walled garden and everybody's forced to give up their privacy, you can go, nah, I'll just give up my phone instead. And we should have the ability to do that without it seriously impacting our lives. And that's one of the biggest reasons you should switch to Linux, free and open source software, and you should seek out solutions which will get you away from these big tech companies. It prevents you from getting auto-banned, and it prevents you from getting forced into walled gardens and doing things that you don't want to do. Let me know your thoughts about these in the comments down below. Leave us a like and a subscribe if you've not already done so. Thanks for watching, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.